The day the sky broke open, humanity knew the old world was over. They came without warning. Vast shadows fell across Earth as alien ships slid into orbit, black against the sun, blotting out daylight itself. Cities froze in silence as the first silver beams cut down from the heavens, glowing brighter than lightning, sharper than fire. The alien empire had arrived. Their soldiers descended first. Towers of steel and light opened from the ships, and armored figures walked the earth. Their armor shimmered, bending the air around it, and nothing touched them. Not bullets, not rockets, not fire. Human tanks rumbled forward, firing with all the force they had. Shells exploded against alien shields, leaving only smoke and sparks. The aliens stood tall, unshaken. Then they laughed. Their laughter echoed across ruined streets. It was cold, sharp, like metal scraping glass. To the invaders, this was not war, it was comedy. They mocked the humans openly. "Look at them," one alien general sneered, his voice amplified by translators. "Scrap metal wrapped around soft flesh. Do they really believe those toys will save them?" Another alien slammed his staff against the ground, armor gleaming like liquid silver. "They are weak animals pretending to be soldiers. Their weapons are relics. Their courage is nothing. Their planet already belongs to us." Around the world, broadcasts caught these words, replayed on broken screens, heard by civilians huddling in bunkers and by soldiers bleeding on battlefields. Humanity's heart sank. The first clashes were disasters. Entire brigades were wiped out in minutes. Planes fell from the sky like birds struck by stones. Cities burned, their defenders powerless against weapons that carved through steel like paper. And through it all, the aliens laughed. They were so confident, so arrogant, that they decided to turn the invasion into a spectacle. On the third day of the war, the alien high commander stood atop a captured human capital. His armor glowed under the burning sky as his voice thundered across every channel, every device, every speaker. Still alive on Earth. Humans. Hear me. Your struggle amuses us. Your weapons are worthless, your armies broken. You are not warriors. You are fragile creatures playing at war. The broadcast showed him lifting a human rifle, bending it in his armored hand like it was nothing but soft clay. The alien general threw it aside, laughing as his soldiers roared with him. Then he offered a challenge. "Fight us with your strongest warriors. Bring forth your finest, your champions, your bravest. If they win, we will leave your planet untouched. If they lose, your world belongs to us forever." The message ended with alien laughter, echoing through every speaker, chilling every listener to the bone. At first, silence followed. In bunkers, in military bases, in ruined cities, nobody spoke. Everyone thought the same thing. It was hopeless. How could humanity win? Their tanks were heavy, clunky, outdated. Their jets were fast but fragile. Their guns were old machines compared to the glowing rifles of the aliens. Human armor was thick, hot and suffocating, but it cracked under alien fire like glass under a hammer. And worst of all, the aliens knew it. On the news, burning cities filled the screen. Skyscrapers collapsed under alien beams. Entire neighborhoods vanished in seconds. Soldiers fought with bravery, but their bullets only sparked harmlessly against the shining alien shields. To the ordinary people watching, it looked like the end of everything. Parents clutched their children tighter, whispering hopeless prayers. Soldiers clenched their rifles, knowing they would not survive the next day. Leaders hid behind closed doors, voices shaking as they argued about surrender. But in the shadows, far from the broadcasts, far from the alien eyes, something else was happening. Deep underground, inside hidden bunkers and secret labs, Earth's leaders and scientists met in silence. The world's armies had been shattered, but the war was not yet lost. One general, his uniform torn and his face covered in ash, spoke into the dim light of the bunker. His voice was rough but steady. "They think we are weak. They think this is a game. Let them laugh. We will give them something they do not expect." Across the table, an engineer slid forward blueprints, plans for machines that had never been tested, weapons cobbled together from both human ingenuity and scraps of captured alien tech. The designs were risky, desperate, maybe even impossible, but they were all humanity had left. Scientists worked with trembling hands, welding pieces of alien metal to human rockets. Soldiers trained not to match alien strength, but to exploit alien arrogance. They studied the invaders' patterns, their weaknesses, their pride, Every night, news broadcasts showed more burning cities. Every day, the alien voice thundered across the world, mocking humanity's weakness. But underground, in the silence of hidden bunkers, something was changing. The aliens thought they had broken human hope. They thought humanity was already defeated. They were wrong, because in the darkness, the spirit of humanity was sharpening into something new, something harder, something stronger. And when the time came, the invaders would learn a truth they had forgotten across their vast empire. Weakness can be a mask. Soft flesh can hide iron hearts, and laughter can die in the throat when the prey learns how to bite. The war was only beginning. The first clash of the war was remembered not for victory, but for despair. When the alien empire marched across the earth, the world's armies rose to meet them. Tanks rolled down highways. Jets cut through the skies. Soldiers in battered helmets gripped rifles as if they were the last threads of hope. For a brief moment, humanity believed numbers might matter. They believed courage could fill the gap between human steel and alien fire. They were wrong. The battlefield stretched across a ruined plain outside what had once been a great city. Smoke from burning towers blackened the horizon. Alien ships hovered above, casting shadows so wide they seemed like floating continents. At dawn, human artillery opened fire. Dozens of shells screamed into the sky, their thunder echoing across the ruins. The ground shook with the force of the blasts. Soldiers cheered when fire engulfed the first wave of alien troops, but when the smoke cleared, the aliens were still standing. Their armor shimmered with strange light, bending the blasts away. Their shields pulsed once like ripples in water, and then the battlefield fell silent. Not a single alien had fallen. The laughter began again. Alien warriors stepped forward in perfect formation, their movements slow and deliberate, as if they were not fighting enemies but demonstrating a lesson. Their weapons glowed, humming with deadly power. The first volley tore through the human lines. Tanks that had survived decades of wars exploded like toys under the alien beams. Soldiers were thrown through the air, their screams drowned by fire and thunder. Still, the humans did not run. They fired back with rifles, machine guns, missiles, anything that still worked. Their bullets sparked harmlessly against the shimmering shields, falling uselessly to the ground. The aliens laughed louder. "Pathetic," one commander growled, his voice carried on the wind by alien translators. "They bring knives to a storm. They fight as children do, with sticks and noise." But the humans did not stop. Even as their comrades fell, even as their weapons proved useless, they kept firing. Some charged forward, bayonets fixed, charging into certain death just to buy their friends a few more seconds. The aliens began to notice something unusual. For all their weakness, for all their broken weapons, the humans refused to break. Even surrounded, even crushed, even staring at death, they fought. It was not fearlessness, it was desperation. And desperation had a sharp edge. By midday, the battlefield was a graveyard. Human bodies lay among shattered tanks and twisted steel. Smoke curled into the sky like black scars. The surviving soldiers were few, their weapons empty, their breaths ragged. But they had learned something. From their hiding places in the rubble, they watched the aliens carefully. The invaders moved slowly, arrogantly, as if they believed nothing could harm them. Their shields glowed with each blast, but only for a moment, like a flicker, a pulse. One soldier, bleeding and half buried under wreckage, whispered into his cracked radio, "They lower their guard when they think the fight is over. That's when we strike." The message reached the underground bunkers where generals and scientists still planned. It was a tiny detail, almost nothing, but it was enough. Meanwhile, the aliens celebrated. That night, the alien commanders broadcast their victory across every channel once again. Human cities saw the glowing figures standing tall in the ruins, laughing at their fallen enemies. "This is the might of the Empire," the High Commander declared. "This is the power of true warriors, and this is what awaits all who resist. Humanity is finished." On the surface, the words rang true. The battlefield had been lost. Humanity had no chance of matching alien weapons with alien steel. The people of Earth wept in silence, believing surrender was the only option left. But underground, in hidden rooms lit only by flickering lamps, leaders leaned over maps, scientists sketched new designs, and soldiers reloaded whatever they had left. The humans had seen enough. They knew alien shields were not unbreakable. They knew arrogance left openings, and they knew one truth above all. The aliens had made a mistake. By giving humanity a chance to fight, By mocking them instead of destroying them outright, they had given humans time to think, to learn, to adapt, and humans were dangerous when they adapted. In the smoking ruins of the battlefield, survivors crawled back to safety. The ruins of the battlefield still smoked when the first sparks of change began to glow. Humanity had lost the fight, yes. Their tanks were wreckage, their planes were ash, their soldiers buried under rubble. The aliens had laughed, as they always did. But hidden inside the flames of defeat, humanity had found something the aliens never expected: a weakness. It was small. It was almost nothing. But it was real. Alien shields were not invincible. They pulsed when struck, flickered for a breath, and then reformed. The aliens ignored this flaw because no human weapon could strike fast enough to exploit it. But the survivors had seen it. They had whispered it through broken radios, and in the underground bunkers the message spread like wildfire. Hope. For the first time since the invasion began, Earth's leaders sat around a table without despair in their eyes. A general, his voice low and steady, spoke. They think they cannot be touched, but arrogance is its own weakness. If we cannot match their technology, we will fight with what they don't have: imagination. The room stirred. Scientists leaned over blueprints. Engineers scribbled on scraps of paper. Soldiers whispered strategies in corners. Humanity was beginning to shift. Instead of trying to fight like the aliens, they would fight like humans. They turned cities into traps. In one ruined metropolis, skyscrapers were wired with explosives. Streets were dug into tunnels. Windows hid snipers. Entire districts became mazes where alien patrols could vanish and never return. The first alien squad that marched into the city laughed when they saw the ruins. They mocked the empty streets, certain the humans had fled. But as they advanced, the ground shuddered. Buildings collapsed, burying them in steel and concrete. Explosives ripped through their ranks. And from the shadows, human fighters emerged, firing not to break shields, but to time their shots. Bullets struck, the shields pulsed, and in the flicker of a heartbeat, heavier weapons fired. For the first time, alien armor cracked. One soldier shouted in triumph as an alien fell, its silver body shattering against the pavement. That shout was heard across radios, across bunkers, across the hearts of every soldier who had begun to lose faith. It was possible. The invaders could bleed. The aliens were shocked. Their laughter faltered. Commanders barked orders. More soldiers poured into the city, their weapons cutting down human fighters. Yet the damage had been done. The myth of invincibility was broken. From that day forward, humanity changed its strategy. They no longer fought in open battle. They no longer marched their armies into alien guns. Instead, they became shadows. They struck at night in forests, in deserts, in the mountains. They moved through sewers and underground tunnels. They jammed alien signals with crude devices cobbled from scavenged tech. Every ambush was a lesson. Every captured weapon was studied, rebuilt, and repurposed. Humanity was learning at a speed the Empire had never seen. In the mountains of Asia, guerrilla fighters set traps with old artillery hidden in caves. In the jungles of South America, soldiers painted themselves in mud, striking from nowhere and vanishing into the green. In the deserts, snipers hid beneath the sand, waiting hours just to fire a single shot at the exact moment a shield flickered. The aliens began to whisper among themselves. They are adapting. They should have broken by now. Why do they not surrender? Fear, something the Empire had not felt in centuries, began to creep into their voices. Still, the commanders mocked humanity in their broadcasts. Still, they called humans weak, animals, children with sticks. But their laughter was no longer pure. Behind their voices lay something else, something they could not hide: unease. For the humans refused to stop. Even when entire cities were leveled, survivors crawled from the rubble to fight again. Even when entire armies were burned away, smaller groups rose in their place. Even when hope should have died, it only grew sharper. The Empire had expected a quick victory. They had expected a species that would kneel after one strike. Instead, they had awakened something far more dangerous: the will of a species that refused to die. One alien officer recorded a report for his commander. His words were clipped uneasy. These humans, they are not like the others we have conquered. Their weapons are crude, but their minds are sharp. Every defeat teaches them. Every loss makes them more dangerous. I fear this war will not end as we expect. The commander silenced him with a blow, ordering him never to speak such weakness again. But the words lingered. The turning point had come. The Empire did not see it, not fully, not yet. But humanity had already shifted. From prey into predator. From scattered defenders into something greater. The aliens thought they had crushed Earth in their first victories. They thought they had broken the spirit of mankind. But what they had really done was something far more costly. They had shown humanity how to fight them, and humanity was listening. The war was far from over. The darkest days still lay ahead. But from the rubble of defeat, a truth had been born that would carry Earth through the fire. Humans could learn. Humans could adapt. And humans, once pushed to the edge, would never stop. The turning point had begun. The alien empire had expected surrender. Instead, they awoke to fire in the night. It began with whispers, small reports, alien patrols vanishing in ruined cities, convoys disappearing in the forests, outposts going silent, their signals cut off in mid-sentence. At first, the Empire dismissed it as equipment failure, as chaos among the weak humans. But soon the truth could not be denied. Humanity was striking back, not with armies, not with open battles, but with shadows, traps, and fury. In the mountains, alien columns moved slowly through narrow passes. They laughed at the cliffs around them, certain no enemy could hide. Then the rocks exploded. Old artillery, hidden for days, fired from camouflaged positions. Entire sections of the alien line were buried beneath avalanches. Survivors stumbled out of the dust, only to be cut down by human snipers who had waited, silent as stone. In the deserts, alien supply ships landed on the sand, unloading their shimmering machines. The heat warped the horizon, and the soldiers laughed at the emptiness around them. But beneath the dunes, men and women waited. They had dug tunnels with their bare hands, hiding mines and explosives under the sand. When the ships lifted again, fire erupted beneath them, tearing their hulls apart. The laughter of the aliens turned to screams as their mighty engines burned. In the jungles, alien patrols walked among the thick green, their glowing armor shining like lanterns. They did not see the eyes watching them from the trees, the painted faces, the silent figures with old rifles and stolen alien blades. Arrows, bullets, and blades struck at once. Shields flickered, cracked, and shattered. The jungle swallowed the survivors whole. Everywhere, humanity had become a ghost. They struck in the night, then vanished before dawn. They jammed alien signals, turning their communication into static. They built bombs out of scraps, hidden inside abandoned cars or beneath ruined streets. They learned to time their shots to strike in the flicker of alien shields. For the first time, alien laughter began to die. One officer reported, his voice shaking, "These humans, they do not fight as soldiers. They fight as predators. They use the land itself against us. They come from nowhere and vanish without trace." "Commander, it is as if the entire planet has turned against us." The commanders grew furious. They ordered more troops, more firepower, more destruction. Entire districts were burned to the ground. Forests were leveled. Villages were wiped from the map. But still the humans came, because humanity had stopped fighting for victory. They were fighting for survival. And survival made them relentless. Captured alien weapons appeared on battlefields, crudely rewired, powered by stolen cells. Shields were ripped from broken bodies and strapped onto human soldiers, heavy and unstable, but enough to turn a man into a walking wall. Alien rifles were torn apart and studied, rebuilt into strange hybrids that spat fire and plasma in bursts the aliens had never seen. Every ambush gave humanity more tools. Every corpse gave them more knowledge. In one ruined city, human fighters captured a small alien transport intact. Within weeks, engineers turned it into something new. Half alien, half human, patched with steel and wires but flying under its own power. The first stolen ship roared into the sky like a wounded beast, and human pilots laughed. Not in mockery, but in triumph. The invaders were no longer hunting prey. They were being hunted. Alien soldiers began to whisper when they thought commanders could not hear. "Do not go into the ruins. Do not travel alone at night. Do not underestimate them." The Empire's broadcasts grew harsher. Their generals shouted louder, calling humans weak, calling them pathetic animals. But their voices trembled. Their eyes betrayed what their words tried to hide: fear. because the humans had proven something the Empire had forgotten. Strength was not in armor. Strength was not in weapons. Strength was in will, and the will of humanity was unbroken. In one decisive strike, human fighters ambushed a convoy carrying a high-ranking alien commander. The attack was brutal, chaotic, and costly, but it worked. The commander's body, stripped of its shimmering armor, was paraded through the ruins of a human city. For the first time, the Empire's soldiers saw their leader fall. The laughter was gone. Across the galaxy, the alien empire had crushed countless worlds. They had marched from system to system, laughing at every species that dared resist. The Empire had never known fear. For centuries, they had conquered world after world. Species fell before them like grass before the flame. None had resisted for long. None had endured, but Earth was different. At first, the aliens told themselves the resistance was nothing, annoying, temporary, a weak species fighting against the inevitable. But as weeks turned to months, as cities burned yet still produced fighters, as soldiers died yet new ones rose from the ashes, doubt crept in. For the first time, the Empire began to wonder, what if humanity could not be broken? Alien officers wrote reports that their commanders refused to hear. These humans, they fight harder after every loss. They are not weakened by defeat. They are sharpened by it. The more we destroy, the more they resist. It is unnatural. It is terrifying. But the reports were true. Every strike that should have ended human hope only seemed to make them stronger. When one city was leveled, its survivors joined the resistance with vengeance burning in their eyes. When an army was wiped out, new fighters rose from the ruins carrying whatever weapons they could find. Entire families, fathers, mothers, children, took up arms. The Empire thought death would scare humanity into submission. Instead, death only deepened their rage. In one destroyed city, an alien patrol found a wall covered in words written in ash. "We do not surrender." The soldiers laughed at first, but the laughter felt hollow. Days later, that same patrol vanished without a trace. The humans had become everywhere and nowhere. Alien commanders ordered larger operations. They unleashed firestorms on forests, floods of plasma on villages, chemical clouds on farmland. They thought that by destroying the Earth itself, they would destroy the humans who lived upon it. But humanity adapted. When food ran short, they hunted in silence, gathered roots, and fished in rivers. The aliens did not bother to watch. When water was poisoned, they filtered it with crude machines. When the sky was black with smoke, they learned to fight in the dark. Every time the Empire tightened the noose, humanity slipped free stronger than before. One alien officer, standing before the body of his fallen soldiers, whispered to himself, "They do not die like others, they evolve." The Empire began to feel something new, unease. Their soldiers, once arrogant, now traveled in larger groups. They avoided the ruins of cities, fearing the traps hidden in the rubble. They walked faster at night, weapons shaking in their hands, scanning the shadows where human eyes watched. The humans noticed this, and they pressed harder. In the forests, they attacked supply convoys and melted into the trees. In the seas, submarines, ancient creaking machines, struck alien ships with torpedoes before sinking back into the deep. In the skies, stolen alien craft appeared in quick, brutal raids, then vanished into the clouds. The Empire was being bled. Slowly, painfully, cut by 1,000 blades they could not stop. The invaders had thought Earth was weak, but they had miscalculated something deeper than weapons or armor. They had miscalculated the human spirit, for humans had lived with struggle since the beginning. Hunger, storms, wars, plagues. They had been tested by every cruelty their own world could throw at them. Pain was not new, suffering was not strange. And in suffering they had always found a way to endure. The aliens, for all their power, had forgotten what it meant to fight for survival. They had grown soft in their arrogance, believing strength came only from weapons. Humanity reminded them that true strength was born in struggle. One captured alien log, later discovered in a destroyed outpost, carried words that shook even the high command. We thought them fragile. But these humans, they are the most dangerous creatures we have ever faced. They rise from every defeat. They fight with fire in their eyes, even when all hope should be gone. They do not fear death. They turn pain into strength. If we do not crush them soon, they will become the hunters, and we the prey. The alien commanders tried to dismiss it. They ordered more weapons, more destruction. They promised swift victory, but in their silence, in their private councils, the truth was spreading. The war was changing. The Empire had mocked humanity as weak, but weakness was an illusion. What they saw now was a species that grew stronger the more it bled. A species that could take every loss and turn it into a lesson. A species that refused to kneel. The hidden strength of humanity had been revealed, and soon it would be unleashed in full. The war had dragged on longer than anyone believed possible. The alien empire had burned continents, poisoned oceans, shattered cities. Yet humanity still fought. Every ambush, every trap, every stolen weapon had bought time. Time to learn, time to adapt, time to prepare for the final strike. The moment came when the Empire, furious and desperate, brought its greatest weapon to Earth, a fortress ship. It descended from the clouds like a mountain of metal, blotting out the stars. Its surface shimmered with lights and cannons. Its shadow stretched for miles, swallowing entire cities in darkness. This was no ordinary ship, it was a mobile world, a floating palace of war. Inside, tens of thousands of alien soldiers waited. Its core held enough firepower to erase Earth from existence. The message was clear: submit or be destroyed. But humanity did not submit. In bunkers deep underground, leaders gave the order. Every weapon, every jet, every missile still left on Earth would be launched. Every soldier, every pilot, every fighter would rise one last time. The plan was not victory. The plan was survival. Destroy the fortress ship, and the Empire might retreat. Fail, and Earth would be ash. The night of the final battle began with silence. Then the sky exploded. Missiles streaked upward, leaving trails of fire. Jets roared from hidden bases, rising like swarms of steel birds. From submarines in the oceans, torpedoes shot toward the hovering giant. Even old nuclear weapons, forgotten relics of human wars, were brought out, armed, and fired into the sky. The aliens laughed at first. Their shields absorbed the first waves of fire. Plasma turrets cut through jets like knives through paper. Nuclear blasts lit the heavens in terrible light, but when the glare faded, the fortress still hung above, unshaken. Yet humanity did not stop. Pilots screamed through their radios as they dove into alien fire, sacrificing themselves just to push missiles one step closer. Submarines rose from the oceans only to be obliterated, but not before their torpedoes struck. Soldiers on the ground fired everything they had, knowing they would never see the sun again. Each strike made the fortress shields flicker. Each sacrifice brought a heartbeat of weakness. And in those heartbeats, humanity struck harder. Inside hidden bunkers, engineers worked furiously on their greatest gamble, a captured alien weapon, reprogrammed, rebuilt, and mounted on a human launch platform. It was unstable, dangerous, it might kill them all. But it was the only chance. As the battle raged, human fighters opened a path with their lives. Dozens of jets threw themselves into the fortress guns, clearing a corridor through the fire. On the ground, anti-air batteries fired until they overheated and melted. Finally, the weapon was ready. With a roar, the stolen alien cannon fired, sending a beam of impossible light into the sky. It struck the fortress, tearing through the weakened shields. For the first time, the great ship screamed. Its armor split, flames pouring from its side, but it was not enough. The ship staggered, but it still lived. Its guns fired faster, its engines glowing with fury. The ground shook as it began to charge its core, preparing to unleash a blast that would burn the entire planet. Humanity had seconds left. The order came through every radio, every headset, every cracked communicator still working. All forces attack. Now give everything! Jets dove in waves, slamming into the fortress, exploding on impact. Missiles fired until the launchers were empty. Tanks rolled into the open, firing upward until alien beams vaporized them. Soldiers screamed war cries as they unleashed their last rounds, their voices carried into the night. The fortress ship roared. Its core glowed brighter, building to the final strike, and then one last shot. The reprogrammed alien cannon fired again, its unstable power tearing itself apart as it launched. The beam struck the fortress at its center, piercing straight into the glowing core. The sky turned white. The fortress ship cracked apart, splitting like glass under a hammer. A wave of fire spread across the clouds as the explosion lit the night brighter than the sun. Alien screams filled the air. then were silenced as the massive ship broke into pieces, raining fire down upon the earth. The ground shook for miles. Windows shattered. Oceans boiled, and when the fire finally cleared, the fortress was gone. Humanity had won. But the price was unthinkable. Cities lay in ruin. Millions had fallen. The skies were filled with smoke and ash. Survivors stood among rubble, their weapons empty, their bodies broken. And yet they still stood. Above them, the alien empire's greatest weapon had been destroyed. The survivors of the alien fleet, leaderless and broken, began to retreat. For the first time they felt fear. For the first time they fled. The final battle was over. Humanity had not only survived, they had struck a blow that echoed across the stars, and the galaxy would never forget. The fortress ship's wreckage still burned in the sky when silence fell across the earth. For the first time since the invasion began, there was no alien laughter. No glowing figures mocking human weapons. No booming voices declaring humanity's weakness. Only silence and the slow, steady sound of survivors breathing through smoke and ash. The war was not clean. The war was not glorious. It had cost more than anyone could imagine. Cities were gone, entire continents scarred, oceans poisoned, skies blackened. Millions were dead, millions more wounded. Earth itself groaned under the weight of what had been done to it. But humanity was alive. Across the ruins, survivors climbed from rubble. Soldiers dropped their broken rifles, staring in disbelief at the empty sky where the fortress ship had once loomed. Children pointed at the falling embers, watching the sparks fade into the night. For the first time in months, the invaders were gone. Word spread quickly. Across bunkers, radios crackled with messages of victory. Across ruins, soldiers shouted into the smoke, "They're retreating. The aliens are fleeing." And it was true. Without their great fortress, without their commanders, the alien fleets pulled back. They had come to Earth certain of victory, certain of conquest. But they left in silence, dragging their broken ships into the dark. The Empire had suffered something it had not known in centuries: defeat. In their records, Earth should have been a simple conquest. A weak world, a weak species, ripe for harvest. But instead, Earth became something else, something whispered in fear across the Empire's ranks. The humans, a race that refused to surrender. A race that turned every loss into strength. A race that fought harder the more it bled. Alien officers, once arrogant, now spoke in hushed tones. Reports carried back to the Empire told of ambushes in forests, traps in cities, submarines in the seas. They told of humans who fought with sticks, with knives, with stolen weapons, who fought even when surrounded, even when hopeless, even when certain of death. One report, captured years later, carried words that would echo across the galaxy. We thought them weak, but weakness is their disguise. Beneath it lies something stronger than armor, sharper than steel. These humans do not break. They endure, and in enduring they learn, and in learning they kill. They are not prey. They are predators. The galaxy listened. Other species enslaved by the Empire heard the stories whispered through smuggled channels. They heard of Earth, the world that fought back. They heard of humans, the ones who bled but never bent. And for the first time, hope stirred in hearts long beaten down. If the humans could resist, if the humans could win, then maybe others could too. Back on Earth, the survivors rebuilt. It was slow, painful work. The ground was scorched, the air thick with ash, but humans planted seeds in the dirt. They raised shelters from ruins. They buried their dead with tears, then stood again to fight for the living. The scars of war were everywhere, carved into the earth and into the people. But in those scars, humanity found pride. They had faced an empire that had mocked them, crushed them, tried to erase them. And they had endured. Children grew up hearing stories of the invasion, stories of the first defeats, the laughter of the aliens, the despair of the early days. But they also heard stories of the resistance, the ambushes, the stolen weapons, the final battle where humanity lit the sky with fire and brought down the fortress ship. Those children learned a lesson deeper than any history book could teach. Humans may stumble. Humans may fall. But humans always rise. Years later, when travelers from distant worlds spoke of Earth, they did not call it weak. They did not call it fragile. They called it dangerous. The Empire, once so arrogant, now spoke of Earth with caution. Their soldiers who had faced humans bore haunted eyes. Their commanders planned carefully, whispering warnings. Do not underestimate them. Do not mock them. Do not forget what happened on Earth. For the galaxy had learned the truth. Strength was not in shining armor or perfect weapons. Strength was in the will to endure, to fight, to rise from the ashes again and again. And no species embodied that more than humanity. The war had changed everything. The aliens had come to Earth expecting easy prey. Instead, they found a predator that refused to die. And the legacy of that war, the laughter of the Empire turned to silence. The broken fortress burning in the sky, the rise of humanity from ruin would echo. Forever. The galaxy would never laugh at humanity again. The ruins of the alien fortress still glowed on Earth's horizon. When the galaxy began to whisper, signals carried news across the stars faster than light, faster than silence could bury it. Stories spread through secret channels, smugglers, rebels, and slaves. The story of Earth, a world that had been marked for conquest, a species the Empire had mocked as weak, soft, foolish. Yet somehow, impossibly, they had fought back. They had bled, but they had not bent. They had faced the Empire's fortress ship and brought it crashing down. And now the galaxy listened. On worlds under the Empire's boot, whispers spread in the shadows. Prisoners in mines looked up from their chains and dared to imagine freedom. Farmers under alien overseers spoke in hushed voices about humans who turned scrap metal into weapons that broke the Empire's pride. Soldiers drafted into the Empire's armies traded rumors that made them hesitate before firing their rifles. The Empire tried to crush the story. They sent messages declaring Earth a wasteland, its people broken, its survival a lie. But the Empire's own soldiers knew better. Survivors of the war carried haunted eyes. They had seen the humans fight. They had felt their own fortress ship explode. Their silence told the truth louder than any lie. The Empire was afraid. Deep within their capital world, the High Council gathered in secret. Towering figures in golden armor sat around a glowing map of the galaxy. For centuries, their rule had been absolute. World after world had fallen to their fleets, their power unquestioned. But now one world had defied them. Earth must be destroyed, one counselor hissed. Already tried, another replied bitterly, and failed. Their resistance spreads like fire. Then cut out the fire before it grows, and if it's too late, silence fell across the chamber. For the first time in centuries, the Empire tasted something they had forced on others, but never known themselves: doubt. Meanwhile, on Earth, humanity rebuilt. The scars of war were deep. Cities were ash, oceans poisoned, skies clouded. But survivors worked with unbroken will. Engineers repaired power grids with salvaged alien metal. Farmers planted seeds in bombed fields, watching life sprout from destruction. Children played among ruins, their laughter carrying where alien war cries had once echoed. Most of all, soldiers trained. Humanity knew the war was not over. The Empire would return. And next time, Earth could not rely on luck and sacrifice alone. Captured alien weapons were studied. Human scientists tore apart plasma rifles, disassembled shielding technology, examined fragments of the fortress ship. Slowly, painfully, they began to understand. Human technology leapt forward years, decades, even centuries, and so from ruins, a new army was born. Ships rose from hidden factories, rough but powerful, forged from both human ingenuity and alien scraps. Weapons were redesigned, combining Earth's raw firepower with stolen energy tech. Armor was built lighter, stronger, deadlier. What began as survival grew into preparation, because Earth had learned a lesson. Once you stand against an empire, it will never forgive, and Earth was not alone. One night, in the skies above the ruined cities, strange signals appeared. They were not from the Empire. They were not hostile. They were messages carefully encoded, cautiously sent from other species. Are the stories true? Did you fight them? Can you help us? Human leaders read the messages in silence. The choice was clear. Humanity could hide, rebuild quietly, and hope the Empire never returned. Or they could answer the call. They chose to answer. Small groups of human envoys riding ships barely tested sent replies into the dark. Yes, we fought. We endured. We won. You are not alone. And across the stars, sparks of rebellion lit. In the minds of conquered worlds, slaves whispered of humans who had broken the unbreakable. In distant systems, hidden militias raised stolen rifles, painting the symbol of Earth on their walls. On forgotten planets, Exiles swore they would rise again if the humans stood with them. The Empire tried to stamp out these flames. But the more they crushed, the more the fire spread. And behind it all was one truth the galaxy could not ignore. The humans had changed the game. No longer was Earth a nameless world. No longer was humanity just another weak species to be conquered. Now Earth was a symbol. Humanity was a warning, and the Empire knew it. In their council chambers, they whispered the word as if it were a curse. Human on rebel worlds. They spoke it like a prayer, human, and in the shadows of the galaxy, where empires and powers plotted in silence, one question grew louder with every passing day. If humanity could rise from ruins and break an empire's pride, what would they do next? The war was over, but the story of Earth had just begun.